welcome to Sureena Speaks. And in this video, I'm going to go through what changes have been made to the MEP edition 41 compared to last year's MEP edition 40. Now, a lot of the changes that have been made are actually to do with the structure, format, the layout of how the information is written, as opposed to what context has actually changed. So for these particular sections, I'm not really going to focus on. I'm going to highlight on the areas where information has been removed or updated to be in line with current guidelines. So I have my MEP edition 41 in front of me. Probably easy if you have yours in front of you as well. I will go through what page number I'm referring to and what section I'm referring to, so then it will probably make it easier to go through the MEP together. So let's start off with page 1, and this section is 2.1, entitled Patient and Person-Centered Healthcare. And in this particular section, they look at examples of patient-centered healthcare in practice. And the line that they have taken out is that patients should be treated as people. I guess it's a given, that's why they've taken that line out. I don't actually know the real reason why they've taken that line out, but they've taken it out. So, hey-ho, let's go on to the next bit now. So moving on to page 2, and in the further reading section, they had a link in there from the Health Foundation regarding patient-centered care. Again, they've removed that and they've updated some of the links in there too. Now, if you go to page 9 and the section titled Social Media, in the MEP 40, they had a whole chunk in there regarding the GPHC standards for conduct, ethics and performance. These have now been updated, which I'll talk about a little bit more later on. So if you go to page 9 and you go to social media, there's actually a whole chunk now that's been taken out of that. Then moving on to page 15, again in the further reading section, they've updated some of the links on there too. So now go to page 23 of your MEP 41, and looking at the section entitled Continuing Professional Development, so CPDs, previously 9 CPD records had to be made in a year. 3 of these which had to start at the reflection stage of the CPD cycle. The CPD cycle was broken down into 4 sections, which were reflection, planning, action and evaluation. So reflection was looking at your own practice. Planning was thinking about what it was you wanted to learn, how you were going to learn it, and when you were going to learn it. Action was then actually recording what it was that you've learned, and evaluation was thinking about how this learning is going to benefit your practice. Now, as of 2018, they're thinking of changing how they're doing CPDs. It's been tested and piloted over the last few years, and it's thought that it's going to be introduced in 2018, where actually 6 records are going to be made in a year now. Now, of these 6, 4 of them are still going to be the CPD cycles, 2 of which need to be unplanned learning, and 2 of which need to be planned learning. You will also need to record a peer discussion, and the 6th thing will be recording a reflective account. Now, on page 23, there is a link in there from the GPHC about the changes that are going to be introduced, are going to be made, potential changes that are going to be made. So do have a read and look at that if you do want any more information. With regards to the exam, they do like to ask questions on CPDs. They also like to ask questions on information that has been updated and has been changed. So, I mean, potentially they could ask a question on the new CPD format that they're thinking of introducing. And remember, you're not just learning for the exam, you are learning for when you are a pharmacist as well. So this is good information to keep yourself updated with and make yourself aware of too. So now if you go to page 25 and the heading entitled Research Involvement, so in the old MEP they went through the 7 GPHC principles and how that affected research involvement. But as I mentioned before, because the 7 GPHC principles have now changed, they've actually taken that bit out of the research involvement section, and instead they're focusing more on the ethical implications of research and how ethics can be involved at each stage of the research process. They've also included 2 pretty diagrams in there as well to make it overall easier to read and easier to understand. And what they've also done is now gone through the 9 GPHC standard for conduct, ethics and performance, and what this means in relation to research involvement. And on page 27, we've got some updated reading material and sources of advice. Now let's jump to page 41, and this section looks at repeatable prescriptions. So in the old MEP, it was written as one big chunk, and it was a lot harder to read and go through because it was just a whole load of words. Whereas in the new MEP, they've actually broken it down into bullet points, and this is actually an example where the change in the layout and the format really makes a difference, because it makes it a lot nicer to read as well as easier to read. So it goes through definitions of what a repeat slip is, what the repeat dispensing process is in terms of batch numbers and batch prescriptions even, and also looking at what instalment prescriptions are. So now if you go to page 48, they've actually introduced a new section called the Covert Administration of Medicines. So this is essentially where you take a medicine and you mix it in a person's food or drink and get them to take it, and they don't realise that they're taking medication. Now, I need to stress out that this is only done in very specific situations. There are a lot of legalities and best practice frameworks that do surround this situation, and it should never be done to a patient who has the capacity and the capability of making their own judgment on their own medication and what they do and don't want to take. So it's only done in really specific situations. Now, as a pharmacist, you might be asked to sign a document regarding the covert administration of medicines. If you are, make sure that you do know what you are signing, because you're agreeing that you have done, for example, a clinical medication review, and that you have provided advice to whoever it is that is giving this medication. That, for example, advice on, say, you mix the medicine in the food, but the patient doesn't eat all their food, then they haven't really had all of their medication. So because this is something that's new, it's not actually something that I've seen as of yet, but there are extra links and resources they have put at the end of page 48. So do have a read of that. Again, this is a new section, might be something that they might want to test you on the exam, so do make yourself aware of it. Now I want to go to page 58 of the MEP edition 41. This section hasn't been changed. It's just an area that I really want to highlight, because I've had so many awkward encounters and instances where this has happened. And what it is a female patient under the Pregnancy Protection Programme hands over a prescription for isotretinoin to the pharmacist that is on duty that day. 10 days later, they come to pick it up, and I'm the pharmacist on duty that day, and I say to them, sorry, but I can't hand you out this prescription anymore because it has now expired. They shout at me because they didn't know that it was only valid for 7 days, and it becomes a really awkward and intense situation. So let's help each other out. Let's remind ourselves, isotretinoin prescriptions are only valid for 7 days if a female is under the Pregnancy Protection Programme, and it must state on there that they have done a pregnancy test and that has come out negative, and it must be written on there. The reason for that is because isotretinoin is teratogenic, which is why the script is only valid for a very short amount of time. Now, this doesn't apply for females who opt out of the Pregnancy Protection Programme or for male patients that are on isotretinoin. This is specifically only for patients under the Pregnancy Protection Programme. So please, please remind yourself of this. Please bear this in mind. And please, anytime a female patient under the PPP hands you a prescription for isotretinoin, you do confirm that if they say they don't want to pick it up that day or you don't have it in stock, just remind them that it is only valid for 7 days from when it is written on the prescription. Rant over. So now if we just go to the next page, on page 59, it's about valproate and its use in females, and they've included a new section in there about what pharmacists should do. So again, valproate is teratogenic in females, and if you have a female of a childbearing age, make sure to double check that they have had a conversation with their prescriber about whether this is the right treatment for them to be on. Manufacturers have also issued alert cards, so do make sure that you hand these out to your patients and maybe go through it with them as well. Again, if they're of childbearing age, maybe advise them on effective forms of contraception. If you find that this female patient, she's on valproate, but she now wants to plan a pregnancy, do refer her back to her prescriber so that she can have her treatment reviewed, and in that time to still carry on using effective contraception. And in situations where there's an unplanned pregnancy, don't tell your patient to stop taking their valproate treatment, but instead do refer them urgently onto their prescriber to make sure that they do have their medication reviewed. So that's a whole new section on what pharmacists should do on page 59 regarding valproate and females. If you turn to page 63, it's a table on different types of prescribers and prescribing restrictions. And if you go to the section on nurse independent prescribers, there's a new part that they've put in there regarding unlicensed medicines, and that these are now excluded from the nurses prescribing formulary in Scotland. So this is really specific to Scotland, and therefore these won't be reimbursed on NHS prescriptions. Yes, it is specific to one location, to Scotland, but it is something new that they've introduced there. So again, make yourself aware of that. So then if we go to page 74 and the section about delivering medicines abroad, including those that are abroad, they have introduced 2 new bullet points in this area, and that's because, I'm guessing because pharmacies are moving towards being online now. There are a lot of pharmacies that have online website systems where you can get your medicines from. We do know that, though, that there are some phony websites out there selling medicines which aren't legitimate ones. So for legitimate pharmacies and for legitimate websites, medicines that are sold across on there, they do need to be registered with the MHRA, and they do need to have the EU common logo on there as well. And it is a requirement of the EU common logo that the medicines that are being supplied do have a marketing authorization in the country that they are going to, which within the EEA, the European Economic Area. On page 77, they've updated some resources and links regarding to homeopathic medicines, so do check that out too. Now if we jump to page 111, there's a whole chunk that they've taken out regarding the Home Office. It was necessary and needed to be kept in the MEP 40, but it's not necessary for it to be kept in the MEP 41 anymore. So if you do want to read about it, it is still in the MEP 40, but they've taken it out of 41 now. So what was previously section 7 in the MEP 40, they've now taken that bit out and merged it with section 4 in the MEP 41, which you can find on page 124. And with regards to appendices, so in the MEP edition 40, there was Appendix 8, which was to do with guidance on providing pharmacy services in relation to moral beliefs and religious beliefs. That section has now been removed from the MEP edition 41. Continuing with appendices, some of them have changed, and in particular Appendix 1 has changed with regards to the GPHC standards for conduct, ethics and performance. So there used to be 7 of these, now there are 9. Some of those 7 are still part of that 9, they've just been worded a bit differently. So number 1 is about providing a patient-centred care. Number 2 is about working in partnership with others. Number 3 is making sure that you do communicate effectively. Number 4 is maintaining, developing, using your professional knowledge and skills. Number 5 is about using your professional judgment. Number 6, behave in a professional manner. Number 7 is about respecting and maintaining a person's confidentiality and their privacy. Number 8 is about speaking up about any concerns that you may have, or when things go wrong, do voicing that as well. And number 9 is about demonstrating leadership. So if you go to page 133, that's where they have Appendix 1 written in the MEP edition 41, goes into a bit more detail as well about each of those 9 principles, so do check that out too. And what they've also included in the MEP 41, which is different to the MEP 40, is actually a few pages at the back where you can jot down any ideas for CPDs that you might potentially want to do, or any notes that you might want to take. So all in all, I hope you can see that most of actually the changes that have been made are more to do with the layout and the format and the structure, but there are a few new sections that they have introduced, and there are a few sections that they have taken away as well. So hopefully you'll find this video useful and useful to your revision and your learning. And if you liked it, why not give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, do check out my Facebook, Instagram and Twitter where I do upload extra information and material. And until next time, good luck with your revision and happy revisings!